put that out of the way first. How about that? Having some kind of animated or live action intro for your YouTube videos has become a pretty defining factor for most content creators. And fairly recently, I remade the Alpha Gaming YouTube intro using the brand new logo that we have for the channel, and many people wanted to know the behind the scenes process of how I actually did what I did. So I'm going to jump in and show you the behind the scenes process and break down how I did what I did and give you guys some tips and tricks when it comes to making your own YouTube video and really discuss, do you even need a YouTube intro? Let's dive in. Before we dive into the video, I do quickly want to remind everyone I do stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday over on Twitch. The link to my channel is in the description down below. And if you guys want to learn more about video editing, content creation, and general motion graphics design tips and tricks, then be sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's talk about YouTube intros. Most popular YouTubers will have an intro for their videos. You can probably name a few off the top of your head. Peter McKinnon, MKBHD, Alpha Gaming, obviously. And these intros vary between different content creators and the kinds of content the content creator is creating. It's a bit of a tongue twister, really. And some of them don't even have YouTube intros, so what do you guys do? Do you go for a YouTube intro? Do you not go for a YouTube intro? And if you do, what are some of the things that you guys can do to help improve that and give some production value to your YouTube videos? First things first, if you are going to go for a YouTube intro for your videos, keep it short and keep it sweet. No one, and I mean no one, likes to watch a long YouTube intro, and having one that's significantly longer than others is going to greatly affect your watch time and have the viewers that are watching your content leave for something that's more interesting than just your intro. Keep it short, keep it sweet, ideally between 3 to 7 seconds at best. Unless you're someone like Peter McKinnon who shows off all of his beauty shots in one go and has millions of subscribers, then you know, you can kind of do whatever you want. Secondly, consider working the graphics of your intro into the video in a more natural way. A good example of this is if you are shooting loads of B-roll, you can incorporate the graphics of your YouTube intro into the B-roll of your video without taking away the audience for a title or animation graphic. This is great because it keeps the video flowing, it keeps the audience hooked on the content you're providing rather than taking them away and dragging them out to show off a 5-second intro of an animated graphic. And finally, maybe an intro isn't for you. Maybe your content doesn't need one. You might find having an intro for your videos takes away too much from the content you're trying to deliver and does more harm than good. Only you can determine what works best for your content and what it needs. So trust your gut instinct, watch your videos back and let them speak for themselves. Moving on though, if you have decided that a YouTube intro is best suited for the kind of content you're doing, let's jump in and show you guys some useful tips and tricks and give you guys a bit of a breakdown of how I made the Alpha Gaming intro that we use in the videos. So I'm inside of After Effects for this particular part of the animation. I actually used 2 applications for the Alpha Gaming intro. I started off inside of After Effects and then I moved the entire project over to Apple Motion for a couple of different reasons. The main reason being is I wanted to utilize motion in a really effective way with Final Cut Pro to use drop zones in a really cool way to take control of some of the things that it does inside of Final Cut Pro. I'll explain a little bit more when we get to the motion part of the video, but right now I'm going to break down how I did the animating A part of the Alpha Gaming intro, and it's pretty simple and it's pretty easy to do inside of After Effects. So the logo is pretty simple in terms of its animation. There's not a lot going on that looks like there's a lot going on, but it's really broken down into essentially 2 types of animations. There's the outline, the outer line of the A animating, and then the inner line animating, and there's just offsets and layers going on that give it the illusion there's a lot of animation happening all at once. Let's break this down and show you guys what I mean. So I'm going to make a brand new composition inside of After Effects. I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second. And I have here the Alpha Gaming logo, and I'm going to drag and drop that into the middle of the project. And now what's going to happen is this is an EPS file that has been brought over from Affinity Design, and you can also do exactly the same thing inside of Adobe Illustrator. But it's a vector-based image file. But if I scale this up, what's going to happen is you'll start to see some little pixelations along the side here, especially if I drop the quality down to say like a 3rd quality. You will see that there's, you know, a very significant quality drop from this compared to a vector-based image. And the way to get around this is by ticking this little rasterize button right here on the timeline. And what that will do is it will use the vector-based imagery and the vector-based kind of information that the EPS file contains for that logo. So that's giving us a really clean image to start off with, but we're not actually going to use this EPS file for the animation. We're actually start off by going onto the layer, clicking layer, and then clicking creating shapes from vector layer. And what that will do is that will create a shape layer of the actual logo that we can use for our animation and make things a little bit easier. What we're going to do first is actually break this into two segments. We're going to have the outline as one layer and the inside as a second layer, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. And the easiest way of doing that is by going into the actual layer shape properties here, clicking on one of these groups and then just turning it off. That's the inside. I'll make this the outside for now, and I'm going to rename this to be outside A, and then I'm going to click Command D or Control D on Windows and rename this to be inside A, and then simply just toggling the other group and turning off the other one. So now what we have here is if we solo these, we have the inside A and the outside A. There we have our main two components that we're going to be using. The next part is actually animating the line of the A to animate on and reveal and start building up the logo. And the way we do that is by using another shape layer, but this time we're going to use the pen tool to create it. And what I'm going to do is simply trace the outline of the A like so, and just give it a rough kind of outline. It doesn't actually have to be really that precise. Like so. I'm going to go around and just make it a bit more kind of fine-tuned in a little minute. So as you can see here, I have the outline of the A. It's going to get confusing. I can feel like it's going to get confusing, right? So I have the outside part of the A, and I have the outline that's tracing the A, this kind of square outline going all the way around. That is going to be our matte layer that will animate and reveal the actual outside of the A. Let me show you how you do that. What I'm going to do is click and drag and move this outline above the outside A layer. Then what I'm going to do is on the outside A layer is select the track matte and select alpha matte. And as you can see, the outline has disappeared, but what it's doing is it's revealing underneath it the original line of the original logo. And you can see what we do here is if I toggle down into the contents and then add a trim paths effect to the shape layer, the outline, and I affect the end position, you can see what we're doing here is essentially making a way for the line to get revealed using like a stencil or a cutout and animating that line rather than dealing with the original line of the Alpha Gaming logo. So simply what I'm going to do is start it at 0, click the keyframe at on the end trim path parameter, go all the way over just a little bit, and then click and drag and move that to 100%. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is select these two keyframes, and using our fancy little tool here called Motion V2, which by the way, if you want to grab any of these kind of tools that I use, there's a link to them in the description down below. If you don't want to grab this tool, it's essentially a way for me to make things easier for animation. You can do that using the graph editor inside of After Effects. If you click on the graph editor, you can see you have your keyframes here. Make sure you are in the speed graph view, and what you can do is you can select these keyframes, and then you can set just a little yellow lines on the side here. Click and drag them out, and what you will do is you will actually manipulate the speed of the keyframes to act as what's called an ease in keyframe. So it ramps up really quickly and then eases into the final position of the animation. So we start this playing, as you can see, it starts really quick and then slows off and tapers at the end. But for this, I'm gonna actually use the tool that I have because it makes things a little bit easier to keep track of and makes things a bit quicker for this video. So I'm gonna just drag that up and make it an ease in animation. As you can see, starts really quick and then slows down. What I'm gonna do next is actually animate the start position to kind of like trail after the beginning of the line and kind of chase after it, so it ends the animation super early. So I'm going to click on the start keyframe and then animate it all the way to 100% like so. If I play this back with exactly the same kind of animation keyframes, you'll see nothing really happens. There's like a small kind of bar that animates across. That's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is offset the start keyframes a few frames like so. And what will happen is it will animate the line and then it will chase after it, always like it's trying to catch up to its own tail. And this is exactly what I used for the beginning part of the animation on the original Alpha Gaming logo. If you take a look, as you can see, I have that original kind of animation going off right there, and I repeated that for the two parts of the A inside of the logo, but what I did is I reversed them. So the starting point would be on the opposite end of the A, and it would finish on the opposite end of the A also. As you can see, all it really is those two outlines animating and revealing the line underneath, and that's essentially what it is for the first part of the animation. And then it's essentially repeated for the later part of the animation where the logo is more visible. It stands tall and proud and it's in its full animated state, and then animates off and closes up. It's essentially the same keyframes, just moved in time. It's really that simple. And then when you put those things together, it creates the illusion there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more complexity going on when you are putting these things and layering these things in time. And then I essentially exported this in a ProRes 4444 format. That's quite a tongue twister. In a ProRes 4x4 format, I think you could call it, and then threw that into Apple Motion to complete the rest of the intro. So I'm inside of Apple Motion right now, and it's gonna be a bit of a struggle to explain the amount of complexity that's going on here. Not really, it's actually quite simple. Let's break things down for you guys and show you what's going on. The first thing that I want to kind of reveal and show off to you guys is what's in front of you right now. That is this kind of gray arrow, and what that is, that's called a drop zone. A drop zone is a tool inside of Motion and in Final Cut Pro that is essentially a placeholder for whatever content is underneath the timeline or the title or whatever you're using. So anything that I do inside of Motion to manipulate this little drop zone kind of placeholder here will affect the title and the video inside of Final Cut Pro in the edit. So let me break down exactly what I have going on here inside of the timeline. So I have an animation setup which is revealing a background underneath. So if I play this back real quick, you can see that I have some effects on the drop zone, and those effects are really simple. So these plugins are Pixelate and Hatch Screen, and what these do is they create the kind of digital VHS kind of transition that affects the drop zone, and that will actually affect the video when I put it above its inside of the timeline in Final Cut Pro. That then behind it reveals the polygon effect layer, and all these are in 3D space. We have a 3D animation going on with this video where it actually transforms and animates the Z position over time, so it actually zooms out and does those ease and whiz curve animations that I mentioned earlier inside of After Effects. Now to close that off and to end the animation, I have the drop zone still visible but kind of hidden in the background, and when we animate all of these elements out, it reveals the drop zone once again to show off the next part of the video after the intro. And that is pretty much the simplest part of the animation. That's all the kind of animations going on all at once for the background video and the background in general. And then we bring in the logo, and essentially what the logo is made up of multiple different copies of itself, again offset in time with different effects and different manipulations that are coexisting with each other to create this kind of illusion of complexity. Let's break it down and show you guys what kind of things I have going on. Instead of Apple Motion, you can have something called clone layers, which will basically duplicate and recreate the kind of things that's going on inside of the original video. It's like a copy of a video file, but it's not exactly a duplicate. It's just mimicking whatever you do to the original source file. So in that case, what I have here is I have a logo composition, and if I turn off all of the effects, you can see all it's doing is animating on with several layers that have got some opacity flickers, some are changing in time, some are at different scales, some are smaller, some are just a little bit bigger. It's exactly the same animation, just offset in space and scale and in time to create the illusion there's a lot going on. Then the fun begins with this one. There is a ton of effects on this logo. As you can see, we have add noise, we have edges, we have pixelate, we have a prism blur, we have halftone, outer glow, bad TV, and hatch screen, and all of these layers have keyframes affecting them. As you can see, we have the pixelate effect being affected by the edges, and then we have the halftone that's creating a kind of digital noise kind of pattern here, as you can see, and the bad TV is also affecting it. So all of these layers are building up and affecting different things in the original logo, and going down the list you can see what each one affects it. That adds the edges, that adds the pixelation, that adds a prism blur like an old kind of VHS or a prism effect where it's splitting the RGB channels. As you can see, this kind of builds up and creates this really intricate digital effect. You can see the noise is affecting the glow, and it's gonna be a flicker going on with the hatch screen, and then it all tapers off and does exactly the same thing when it closes inside of the animation. There's a lot going on inside of this intro, and all of these layers complement one another. And if you want to create a really, really cool YouTube intro, consider looking at this kind of tip as number one: layers and offset and timing. This is two key elements. This is the background, and it's also the animated A logo, which is a single video file with 2 lines animating. At its core, this is the most simple you can get when it comes to a YouTube intro, and yet it looks freaking dope. I'm gonna say that about my own work because I really do think this looks pretty cool as a YouTube intro. So take the kind of things that I'm mentioning in this video, apply it to your own motion graphics work. Look at how you can incorporate layers, timing, scales, how you can offset different things and create complexity through simplicity. That's probably the key lesson to learn in this video. And all of these elements just finalize and come together and make a YouTube intro that is clean and minimal and just says a lot about what the channel is. It has DNA involved with it, and it just looks really cool. If you guys found this video helpful, once again, I do stream every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday over on Twitch. The link to my channel is in the description down below. Feel free to drop by, ask any questions about this or indeed anything else motion graphics or video editing related. And if you guys want to be a part of the larger community, get some more feedback on the kind of things you guys are making, feel free to join the Discord. The link for that is also in the description down below. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care.
Oh my goodness! I'm so proud of you!